Okay, here we go. Got it.
Leila, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you, John?
Doing great. Doing great. Where are you right now?
I'm at home in Dayton, Ohio, which it's kind of a newer home, I guess. So that's where I am right now.
Shout out to the great city of Dayton.
Shout out Dayton. New home. It's really been a pretty hold on, my dog is going crazy over here. 1 second. Stop it. And giving her these like CBD dog treats, and they have like dust all over, like CBD dust, and she just is like licking her bowl across the kitchen floor right now, trying to get the excess dust. Like, relax, man. She loves them. She really loves them.
Chasing that dust.
I know. But where are you? You're in Boston.
I'm in Boston, Massachusetts. Yep. Looking forward to some wintertime activities here.
Are you off? Because you're in school, so you're like on break now, right?
Yeah. There's a break time.
Yeah, your winter break. You're partying.
That's right. I'm hanging out and partying.
Are you going to any college parties?
The whole time. I actually did go to a few quote unquote college parties.
Okay.
And I gotta say, I gotta say, I mean, I think that I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing about today's generation. I'm sure that there's all kinds of different versions of this kind of setting, but yeah, it was okay. I was happy to merit the invitation. So okay. I didn't want to be a bad guest and not accept said invitation.
Okay. Was there like an age situation? Like, were you older? Because you're in your 40s, right? Not to blast you out, but
yeah, it blasted me out a little bit. Yeah, I was definitely kind of like, end of the scale in terms of the age bracket. And it was good though. It was good. I got to meet some new people and take in some of New England and otherwise elsewhere's finest law students. So yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you say like the generation thing, because I was walking my dog this morning and I went to this park and there was a little girl like climbing. She was probably 4. She was like climbing on top of everything. Like she was really getting after everything. And her mom was like, all right, like, hold on, like just careful. And she was on top of this like little playhouse basically. And I walked past her and I was like, whoa, like how'd you get up there? Like trying to appreciate, and show her that I appreciate her, skills. And she's like outgoing and she's doing it differently. She's on top of the house. She's not inside of it. And she looked at me like I was such an idiot. She's like, I climbed. I'm like, oh my God. Okay. Like these kids they feel smarter than they were or something. Like, I don't know, because I don't know what kids were like when I was a kid, because I was a kid, but even just the last batch, the generation before this batch of 5-year-olds, they seem a little sharper. Like this kid seemed wildly sharp. Like it kind of caught me off guard. I was like, oh shit, I'm sorry I talked to you like a baby, because you're obviously not.
Yeah. The same stuff holds true in law school, actually. You can't talk to anybody like a baby, because words can be violence in these times. Not to get deep on it, but
oh no, let's dive into that, because that's kind of been like a serious theme, even in the past couple months for me.
Yeah. Okay. Good. Well, like my takeaway from law school was that it was going to be this like, hey, we're all in it. We're all in law school. It's not necessarily to suggest that there's like this academic trust tree or something like that, but like, you're obviously there at law school to sort of like talk and express yourself and formulate thoughts and things like this. And I just think that nowadays everybody is really, really self-aware about what it is that they're saying and the ramifications of what it is that they're saying and how they're saying. And like there's this like cascading effect where you almost, you know, not to assume that you know what somebody could or would or should say, but in like a law school setting, you could see somebody get posed a question and they kind of are very delicate as to how they want to answer it because they don't want to be judged the wrong way by their classmates.
Oh, interesting. That's really interesting. Yeah, it's like a dammed river, basically.
Ooh, that's a good.
Right? Like because it's like, I feel for me personally, the last couple, I don't know, even like really since moving to Dayton, you know, I moved to a small town. So I've been meeting new people within like, oh God, there it is, popping out like word.
We'll talk about this word like later, but you're missing, you're interacting with new personalities and
and I don't dam my river. My river flows. I have a big mouth and I am not afraid to speak like my truth, and I'm not like afraid of people really, or afraid of saying the wrong thing, but I've been getting in trouble because I haven't been thinking like that. And I'm actually, even going into this today, I was talking to myself a little. I was thinking, okay, you know, think before you speak a little bit. And I'm, you know, I think sometimes I can almost interrupt a beautiful conversation. And it's, for me personally, I mean, I like the free flow of conversation, and I think it's okay to say things that you don't mean sometimes when you're processing and having a conversation with someone. But also, like, you know, I'm very fast paced. I like to talk and I think very quickly, and I'm also working on slowing down and chilling out. I'm like smoking weed. I'm trying to just like chill out.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that you say that. In law school, I can imagine people are thinking about a lot socially.
I love the damn river comment because I think, not to sound too like woo cosmic, but you know, I like to think of myself as a little bit of a closet Taoist, but I think every river needs to flow the way it's going to flow.
Right.
And I think that when people start damming up their rivers too strategically, especially like in a weird sort of preemptive way, like, oh, you know, here's my direction, but you know what? I'm just going to stop it right there, not let anybody know that this is really kind of where I'm at. I don't know. I mean, the world's going to become a pretty stiff place.
So, I mean, just socially, you know, you're saying that people are doing this to avoid judgment. Ultimately.
Yeah.
And I feel like something I've learned since I've moved to the Midwest, I didn't really understand, is the hydroelectricity. I didn't really know about hydroelectricity. Speaking of dams, I didn't know that was a thing. I didn't know that there was like fake lakes. I didn't know any of this. I'm from Colorado. Everything's beautiful and wild.
You guys have all the water, you know, water just comes out.
It's flowing. Now I feel like the Rust Belt is like becoming the, I don't know, safe haven almost in the next 10-year run, but who knows? But I don't know. It's the hydro, like what I was saying is that when people start to dam their river and you're questioning, like, why are you damming it? And like, what judgment are you avoiding? Like, from who? Like, are you on this side? Are you working with this person? Are you working for that person? And maybe you're avoiding judgment of that person because they know that other person. Or why, or like, what judgment? Like, who's judging you? Like the judge? Like, you guys are all lawyers, so I could, obviously there's a judge, but like in life and just an everyday conversation, there is no, I mean, maybe God, you know, if you believe in God, or, you know, karmic judgment or something like that. But as far as discussion goes, I don't know. I feel like free flowing conversation is very important in my life. And it helps me a lot to have those people that I can and do feel safe to flow freely around.
I like that.
They're so productive to have. And it's such a productive relationship. And I'm understanding how productive those relationships are to where I don't fear judgment. And I'm trying not to fear judgment from anyone. I mean, I really work on that. And I don't have any ill intent, or I don't know, like I don't have any agenda necessarily. I just want the highest good of all concern. It's like, I'm just about the highest good of all concern.
Well, look, not to shower you with too many compliments early here in the pod, but yeah, get ready for it. One of the things that I think was very like evident when you and I first met, I think it was like in 2016 or 17 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I could tell that you were pretty confident in like being all about where you were in that moment in time. And, coming from experience in an industry like the surf industry or whatever you want to call it, where people tend to be a little bit image obsessed.
Mm.
And you can tell that when you get around people that are like comfortable in their own shoes, kind of like know, like, all right, cool. Like I'm good here. You know what I mean? Like you're not trying to be any place other than where you are. That was my impression when I first met you. And it doesn't surprise me that like when you and I chat right now, that you yourself feel a little bit of like maybe a disconnect at times between some of these, whatever, like younger or differently thinking. Cause like, I even think that people of sort of whatever elder generations can still disguise or like hold back tremendously on like who they really are, and like,
sure.
Obviously like history is like full of that, shout out to my criminal law professor, Professor Coe. But we spent a good chunk of time talking about how, people are very reluctant to get labeled as something nowadays because of social media or whatever. But at the same time, you can still compare that to Bernie Madoff, running that crazy scheme that he ran for so long because
right.
People thought homeboy was one way and he's actually another way. And I think to kind of touch on something that you brought up prior to us getting going here, I thought it was really cool that you mentioned, and I want you to tell this story, that you said that recently, I took notes here, like I told you, that recently an elegant woman stopped you from using the word like too often. And I want to frame this by saying, I am like giving her a big salute here through the cosmos, because I think that when people are like, hey, tell me exactly what you think, stop using the word like, I want to know what you think though. That's like them asking you to be intentional.
Totally. It was super respectful. I mean, we were having a conversation about a lot of stuff that I was excited to tell her about. So I was speaking quickly and she stopped me because she couldn't even focus on the conversation because I was saying like so much. And I understand now because I'm now recognizing it, because I'm trying to be more conscious of it. So I'm now recognizing when other people do it and I've stopped them. And it's just trying to communicate on I don't know, that's the only dam on my river. It's the like dam,
It's the word
like slowly, let them out slowly.
Yeah, like you said, you're not smoking cigarettes, but you drop the word like once in a while, I mean, everyone's got their vices. I don't know if that's but you know what I'm saying.
No, I thought it was pretty funny and I appreciated it. It's a work in progress.
No, I love that. That story, when you mentioned it, seemed very like classically, I don't know, it seemed like classically you, to be honest with you, in terms of hanging out with somebody who is from a different generation, who you described as being elegant, and who stopped you in the moment because they were like, hey, look, Leila, I want to know what you have to say, but hold back on the likes. Pretty cool. I mean, I like that.
It's pretty funny. It was pretty funny.
Okay, so you're in Dayton right now, and I think it goes without saying, like, shout out to your man Tyler Macco.
Oh, so amazing.
Friend of the program, obviously.
Yeah, he's one of a kind.
One of a kind. With the stuff that he does, like, truly does kind of blow my mind a lot. You know, to put it mildly.
I know.
And but you're from, like you said, Colorado. So where in Colorado are you from?
I'm from Breckenridge, Colorado. Little town, about an hour and a half from Boulder, in the mountains, and it's really different than from when it was when I was a kid. It's super, super commercialized, and Vail Resorts bought it. I don't even know how long ago, but when I was in middle school, I think they bought Breckenridge as the mountain, and just over the last 10 years, it's just completely changed. I mean, the whole feeling and energy of the town has changed. The community has changed. The mountain has changed. They're just expanding and building, and it's such a tiny little space, so you can really only expand and do so much. And it's so expensive to live there. So a lot of the people are moving that are locals, either because they can get some money for their house, on top of them not really being excited about what's going on as far as the community, because it's such a small town, but it's like cold. Nobody knows each other. Everybody's so in and out. There's second homes everywhere. You know, the people that are working at the restaurants and cafes are like people that come in for a season and then leave. And so there's just, yeah, and I don't think it's bad. It's just so different. And it's, you know, I think it happens everywhere. Like it's, I don't know if it can really be stopped. And yeah, it's super interesting. It's really weird. I mean, I'm really proud to be from there, you know, like people, I like telling people I'm from there because I think it's a cool spot. It's like different.
Yeah,
but
I mean,
it isn't what it was when I was
right.
kid.
No, it's obviously a legendary town for, you know, all that it's known for. Not, like you said, not being Vail, not obviously being Aspen, but I have to imagine that people, there's probably at least a few people in Breckenridge that are like saying, hey, like, why not us becoming Aspen?
It's Aspen. It's it's all of that. It's so expensive and bougie and touristy now. I mean, I think it always had a little bit of a rougher side, you know. It was like the rougher side of the crystal or whatever.
Yeah, that's his reputation though. Right? I mean,
but it's not as rough anymore because it's so goddamn expensive. So there's no rough people. Like all the rough people can't rough it out there. I mean, my mom, God bless her, is still roughing it out there, and she's also from Breckenridge. So, you know, she's kind of holding it down, and I don't know if she'll ever leave. Like she talks about it all the time, but I don't think she'll ever leave. Like she really is diehard Breckenridge, but she doesn't own anything. And she's been moving around like crazy, and it's just like, I can't imagine doing that. It's so annoying. It's like, damn, it sucks. You can't even get a house for like, I mean, it's insane. Especially now after COVID, it's like out of control. You can't buy anything unless you're like into crypto or like, I don't know what.
Yeah, no, I mean, unless you sold a few NFTs in the last month for a couple $1,000,000.
Right.
Tough to put a down payment on one of those houses.
Unless you own a bored ape, whatever those guys are. If you own a bored ape, you can move to Breckenridge. Yeah. Whoever knows what that means, shout out to all you.
Shout out to the bored ape crew in the world.
But also, you said something earlier that I thought was kind of interesting that I was trying to like go back on, but you were saying how people are reluctant to be defined right now. Is that what you said?
Something along those lines. Yep.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a common, or I feel like that's happening to me. Like people are constantly trying to figure out what I do and like who I am. Like I've really avoided being defined. Like I don't,
Yeah.
you know, I've obviously always been, since I moved away from Colorado when I was 17, I've always tried to stick around like the creative industry. So whether it was like photography or film or music or art, I really tried to, that was the zone I liked to stay in. Obviously, I definitely sacrificed my like sporty spice for the that a little bit.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, I think knowing that you've got a bit of freestyle skiing in your past, I think that makes for actually a really kind of apropos thing for you to have sort of been like, all right, here's my sporty spice side. I'm going to do a backflip on skis or something like this. But you're leaning more heavily, obviously, into your creative leanings or whatever.
Well, I think what happened, and it's interesting because there is something that's happening right now in my life that's like kind of something is coming full circle, like as a whole for me. So being from Breckenridge, the only definition I ever really took on for myself was as a skier. And I kind of left that behind when I don't know, I think I realized how I didn't see it as like a sustainable career for me. I crashed a lot because I would go for it maybe when I shouldn't. And I was really like, my favorite was like big air and slope style. And I was understanding pretty quickly when I got hurt, I broke my tailbone and I just like landed on my face really hard one time. I didn't really do anything too serious, but I kind of, as far as hitting like those injuries, it's like one was like my root of my chakra and one was like my head, so it's like, all right, I'm kind of messing with my body. Like I know I'm being rough on my body and I have chronic pain for sure from jumping. Like already I'm 27 right now and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm so happy I stopped when I did. Because it just didn't feel like a sustainable career for me. And I think that's when I decided to like go for more of the art side of the world and check that out and go explore that. And where I started was, I started modeling and I started doing that actually because of that like same elegant woman that I told you about who told me to stop saying like. She, when I crashed skiing one time, she didn't live in Colorado, but I had posted a photo on my Facebook and when I crashed on my face, because I was like all bloody and crazy looking and I thought it was awesome. So I like posted a photo. I was fine. I just was kind of beat up, but she called me just howling and was like, you have to stop doing this. You're going to die. Like you're going to kill yourself. You're so beautiful. You should model. And I was like, oh my God, like, all right, whatever. And she sent some pictures into like a local agency. And that's like how any of that even started. And I was aware of modeling, I guess, but on a more artistic level than a commercial side of it because of my mom and my grandpa. My grandpa is a photographer and I grew up just seeing like lots of photos of naked women and like colors and abstract weird double exposures and just all sorts of shit. And my mom too also like loved having her photo taken, sometimes nude, but it was always like this really beautiful thing. It was never like there was no clothes usually, or if there was, it was like ski stuff or I don't know, it was on a different, it was really cool to me. And I always I felt really comfortable in that. So when I started modeling, I felt really comfortable and like aware of being in front of the camera, but I didn't like the commercial side of it. Like I started immediately, I was super conscious of like the brands, and I didn't really like a lot of the brands or the clothes too. I just wasn't super stoked on, not always, sometimes I was, but as an overall thing, I was like, I don't know if I can do this because I don't know, I care too much about like what I'm wearing, not what I look like, but like what I am wearing and what I'm choosing to look like. And who, like they do my hair and makeup, and like, I didn't shave my legs or ever wear makeup or barely brush my hair. And so like, it was a real transformation. Like when I started modeling and seeing myself, I was like, whoa, this is a whole other side of me that I haven't really explored. So I did explore it for a second, but now what's happening in my life now is that I've been working with a lot of photographers of my choice that I like as humans and as artists, and exploring that realm. And it's interesting how that is like currently right now I'm trying to organize a lot of my grandpa's work and organize a show for him. And that has been super interesting because I'm seeing so much of myself or the things that influenced me through his work. Like I'm understanding myself and what I've been doing I've been doing all these different things and never, I didn't sign to the modeling agency because it didn't feel right. I didn't do the acting because it still felt commercialized and like heavily, I don't know, it just felt like it was not, I still needed to explore who I was, and you said when you met me, it was like that I was confident in where I was and who I am, but I'm actually not that confident. I'm just like determined to figure it out. Like I'm like, well, I'm gonna die knowing the most that I can know about like who I am and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I'm whatever. And I feel super driven with that, but it's super interesting. And I didn't grow up with my family my whole life. So I'm exploring them, both my grandma and my grandpa. My grandma actually is the reason I really moved to Dayton, because I moved her here. Because it's just super affordable here. And she lived in Colorado and was experiencing, she was worried about running out of money because she's older and she didn't own anything. And so she had called me and was kind of trying to figure out what she should do. And at the time I had been coming out here, and I'd never seen like a $20,000 house before. I was like, what is this nice $20,000 house? Like, I didn't know what the Midwest is awesome. Like, I didn't know that this kind of stuff existed. I'm from Colorado and moved to LA. Like, it's always been, $1,500 for rent minimum for like a shithole, So that's, I don't know, I guess the whole thing that's coming around now with the photography and just exploring, I am trying to get into, I'm not trying to define myself right now, but even the other day I've been putting together like my website and trying to organize all this work that I've done over the last 10 years. And
which is a lot.
Yeah, there's but it doesn't make sense. Like, it's still not, it does make sense to me, but I think I'm trying to communicate with society a little more. Maybe I'm like, all right, like let's do this like together, baby. I don't know. Well, I know who I am now, I think.
That's actually a good line. Like, quote unquote, let's do this together. Because following you, I've always just sort of like looked at the stuff that you do as being in that hybrid producer, director, artist, imaginary kind of world thing that you're building, you know, every project, it seems like is like another step or a little piece that towards that. Even, you know, the kind of, I would say like one of your longer term projects is LSCO.
Yeah, I call it Alesco.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's funny. I always say that a brand will do really well if no one knows how to say it.
That makes sense. I think, yeah.
But I didn't really mean to brand it like that. But yeah, that is like a project that I've just been kind of starting to categorize some of the things that I make and like putting in that, and primarily it's clothes, but it's also a place where I have been working on my creative direction and art direction, as far as, you know, if I make a dress, who's going to wear the dress and who's going to shoot the person wearing the dress, and how am I going to communicate like this piece and show this piece. And you know, my ultimate goal with that is it is a registered nonprofit, but I haven't really done anything with it because I haven't really figured everything out yet. But my ultimate goal has always been to have that as a nonprofit and to raise money for art supplies for foster kids, because I grew up in the foster system.
Right.
So, and art and like anything creative has been extremely beneficial to my life. Like it's really helped me emotionally, and it's really, really helped me. So I do, you know, but I'm just taking my time with that because it's such a community oriented project for me. Like I have my friends that I really trust that, you know, will shoot something for me either for trade or just for free. And it's super special. Like the people who end up reaching out to me that even want the clothes, like that's a whole special thing for me too. And I'm also taking into account like who is reaching out to me. And so far it's been like super successful female artists that are older than me, and younger male rappers, and like that's pretty much it. Like that's pretty much what it is right now. So there's this interesting play. It feels super genuine to, I don't know, who I am, because I do have such a passion for music in general. I love hip hop and so, and art. So it just makes sense that like what's happening, but I'm trying to just genuinely brand it and not brand something by following like what's cool and damming the river. And like I'm really trying to do it like genuinely to me and to who I am and to who my friends are and to what their work looks like and to who the people are wearing the clothes. And you know, that I think is just going to take time, but it's so interesting to see these images and just visually, like even the clothes and the people and the images, it all is helping me understand who I am, like through my work. And it's so cool. Like it's so cool. And I am really, it makes me so excited and anxious, and I want to do so much at once, but I can't because I don't have a ton of money right now to put into that. Like that's just, I want to kind of let it organically grow. But yeah, that is super exciting, and not like many people, you know, really know about it or care to know about it. But the people that do are some of my like favorite humans that I've found like in the world so far. So it has a good purpose behind it. And that's what a lot of people, I don't even really want to brand it like that because the foster system is so heavy that when you start mixing that into a brand, I feel like people kind of are like, whoa, like I don't want to get involved. Not that they don't want to like help, but it's just such a heavy topic and people don't really talk about it a lot. And so for me, it's like, I don't really even tell a lot of people that part of it, because that's something like, that's my 10-year plan. You know, that's like, I need to get images and I need it to make sense. And then it can do more. But yeah, I'm happy that you know about it a little bit. That's cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like I said, it's been really interesting and cool to just, you know, keep tabs on the thing that you're building. And when I say that thing, like I said about you being a producer, creator, creative director, designer, you know, you can just tell that you're like you said, you're being meticulous, but not for the sake of being meticulous. You're being careful, but probably not for the sake of being careful. It's just, it's important to you that this thing, Alesco, like all the other stuff that you do, comes off in a way that feels appropriate. And I think that people can like sense that, you know, like whenever anything like takes on such a like a overt, heavy-handed like obviousness, especially from like a commercial standpoint, becomes boring pretty fast.
Yeah.
And I think that's like, I don't know, from my vantage point, like one of the things that I never get bored watching the stuff that you're doing. And also observing just the community of people, like you're saying, that you've done a lot of things with.
Yeah.
Because it just feels like, you know, not to drop buzzwords, but it feels authentic, you know. It feels authentic in a way that like people strive to make things look authentic. It's like,
oh, that means a lot. That means a lot.
Yeah, without a doubt. So just out of curiosity, I mean, what is your grandfather's name?
His name is Alden Spilman, and he's awesome.
That's awesome.
He's really, really, really cool. And I'm putting together right now, it's not gonna be like his first show, but he hasn't had, I mean, this is gonna be in like a contemporary gallery in New York. And that's definitely the first time for him. And it's actually going to be my first show too. So I'm going to do it with him. And it's really, I think it really gets into, you can really see there's like some kind of cross, like hybrid that's happened between, I just really was so influenced by him. And I always knew that he, you know, I always loved him and he was like my favorite. I only really have my grandma and my mom. And then I did recently meet my dad when I like graduated high school. And he has a wife and a son and his mom, but I've only met all of them like a handful of times. So they're new chapter for me. But as far as the people that I have known my whole life, like my grandma, my grandpa, and my mom, my grandpa and I always had the strongest connection. Like you know, when I got to see my grandpa, we were making art. Like we were painting, we were taking pictures, we were going out looking for stuff or walking, you know, we were always doing something super creative. And there's a lot of really like just like heart touching images that I found with me that he took, or that was like when I was doing something with him that maybe my mom took. And my mom is a pretty incredible artist as well. And I'm probably going to incorporate like some of her. She has like a lot of these little watercolor flowers that she's made like hundreds of them. And so I'm going to start like trying to figure out if I can incorporate that into it. But then if I put her in there too, then I have to put my grandma in there too. And my grandma's like a wild poet. So there's like all, you know, it might just become this family affair, but for now it's just me and my grandpa. And I think it's going to be pretty cool. And, you know, I think it's going to speak really on what I'm about as far as like my work and my art, because I have this super cool opportunity to, like showcase anything I want. Basically, I could do anything. I could do literally anything. And if I wanted to make a bunch of money, I could make some paintings that, it's like if you wanted to make a bunch of money, it would be easy, but that's not what I'm trying to do. I'm really trying to like tap into, obviously I would like to make a bunch of money. That's always fun. Like making much money is always great. Love it.
Yeah,
But
just come out and say it. Put that one out
but
into the world.
I really am, trying to keep it real and to like stay genuine to myself and not sell out. And I think that that's a really hard thing to do right now because of, there's just this like overwhelming judgment that like goes on every day. It's freaking crazy out there, so.
Yeah, a lot of, yeah. And I think that the judgment, I don't know, this is just my personal opinion, but I think that the judgment comes from people really like having this insatiable desire to label stuff in a hardcore way, where you're just like, man, like, doesn't that get exhausting for everybody else? Like to have to sort of be like, no, this is the backstory behind that, and this is exactly
the truth is no one knows anything.
True.
Nobody knows shit. Like we don't know what the hell is going on. I mean, I don't know. Maybe someone does know, but
no, I'm with you.
Like it's almost religious to a point. It's like, where is the rule book other than, it's like, yeah, you have a Bible, but then it's like, where are you getting what is your source? Like, and there's so many sources out there that are so different. And there's such an array of like realities right now that it's overwhelming. It's super overwhelming. And I feel like the most confidence that I do have is just like my own reality. And I know what's real. And, going back to when you're speaking with people, it's like, I just feel that it's important to speak your truth always and like not fear the judgment, because we're all just trying to figure it out, and if it helps, like you and me sharing and having this conversation is only going to help us like better understand each other,
I agree.
So I feel like that is super, super important, to be communicative and stick with your truth and like be, have an opinion, but not, I don't know, not like putting others down for theirs too. That's also like a weird thing.
Yeah, no, 1,000%. I always respect, I mean, who doesn't? I think that we all can kind of admire, somebody who has conviction in the stuff that they're all about. And at the same time, I definitely look for open-mindedness in the people that I tend to interact with, because what's the point if they don't have the ability to go there and be open-minded about things.
Right.
And yeah, and I think that, and I think that this is also just like kind of a little message to everybody out there that like strives to be authentic and strives to kind of have this whatever OG kind of vibe happening in their lives. Like you're just like, you want to encourage people to be authentic to the things that they're all about. And at the same time, like you were saying, not to get over their skis so hard to assume that they have all the information, because very few of us kind of know the right way about things in this world, I think, any longer. And it's just kind of like a little bit more up in the air from a kind of, what side should you be on with X, Y, and Z? I don't know if that makes any sense, what I just said.
No, I think so. I think that it's just hard I don't think you can do it alone anymore.
Yeah.
I don't know if you ever really could have done it alone, but there is this thing that's happening that is like this self-obsession within like success, to where it's like you did it, or like that person like did it, and it's like, well, hold on, because like I guarantee you, to any one person who is the name of any like empire or successful business or even an artist, there's other people right behind them that have a huge amount to do with what the outcome is. Whether, you know, I mean, it's just interesting. And there's this show that, you know, having like my first show, it, you know, it's like literally like my dream since I was a kid to do something like this, and to like have like my show, or like it's, you know, it's like my thing. But for me to bring my grandpa into it, it's like, well, this is like a true source of inspiration for me, and this is like where I learned a lot about a lot of things with this person. And I think that there's something really cool that's happening, that people are starting to kind of, I mean, there's both. There's this super like self-obsession to where it's all about like the one individual, but there's these kids that I recently found that showed with the gallery that we're going to have the show at. And they have a project that they do together, and they're both like Yale students for art, like masters in art, you know, fine art. I mean, it's like, that's so cool to me. That's so incredible. So they've teamed up and they do this project called Blinn and Lampert, and it's so cool. But it's them together, and I really like that. And I think that there's something really cool about what they're doing that I don't know if it's totally, obviously it's been done before. It's like Chromeo, you know, it's like you have two people, but you can have like multiple people and whatever. But I just think that the reality that is like this one person and like this God, basically, it's like the God format. Like, it's like, okay, you have this one person and then there's all these other people. It's a pyramid. It's like a fucking pyramid scheme. It's all a pyramid scheme. Like, it's just not real. Like, it's not real. Nobody can do it by themselves. And I mean, maybe it is. Again, I don't know what's going on, but that's what's
No, I
real.
agree with you. I definitely, I think that we all have to agree with you, because every team, you know, every company, every great product, every great stage play for theater, whatever, takes a good director, it takes a good writer. You have to have people on stage that can act it out. Like, they're, you know,
I mean, movies and film is really the only art medium that really values everyone. Like, everybody's getting paid. You got the union, like, shit's cool. Like, that is where it's at. You know, as far as the art world's going, I mean, and again, I don't know.
no, talk about it. Talk about it. I want to hear about it.
But there's such a hierarchy, and it's really hard to stomach. And it's really, you know, I come from a family of artists, and they're all broke and like, I guess what a lot of people would consider like mentally ill. And it's really scary for me to be pursuing this path, like, as an artist. And I don't even really like the definition artist yet. Like, even when that comes out, I'm like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if that's what it is. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. But that whole like reality that's happening within the art world that I'm seeing right now, within my community and within the people that I've been really spending my time with the last couple of years, it's so unfortunate, because there's just such a hierarchy within the system that is so heartbreaking. And it like very quickly becomes about the money. And there's so much money to be had. I mean, people will go buy $100,000 painting just because, you know, like, they want it for their house, their new house. And there is real money. And I don't really understand what it is, but I do understand that people are milking it. Like, people are making this like surface level art, that like surface level art is like doing really well right now. And it's scary. Like, it's scary for me to see that, because and again, I don't know a bunch of like history, and I don't know a lot of artists, but I do know some, and I knew the artists that I appreciate when I was growing up, and I know my family, and I know my friends, and I don't like know who's who, but to me that's kind of a good thing. And I I feel ignorant sometimes, but I think that what I've been noticing is, and again, it's all my opinion, but the surface level art, the easy to digest art to where you can look at something and be like, oh, that's a chair, or like that's a painting of a girl, like, or a dog, or it's like those paintings are doing so well. And I just don't know if that's what the world needs right now. Like Tyler's work is so complex, and there's so much going on in there, and there's a whole story in there, and that stuff is really hard to sell. It's really difficult. Like Tyler is really working so hard, and he's going to do really well. But it is so hard. If he were to make, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. It's like I don't know if anybody were to do anything else, but it's just interesting to see that, and how I am choosing to move forward, observing these people around me and trying not to let it negatively influence me or something. Like I'm trying to be aware, but not let it have like a super impact. Like, I don't want it to change me, I guess. Like if I can grow and learn, that's great. But I don't, I'm trying consciously to kind of just observe and be like an observer and not judge any of it. But the work that is doing the best right now is it's just not really that good to me.
No, so, I mean, so that's really interesting because I think I follow enough, enough like different personalities out there to have heard that either joked about or, openly discussed from a standpoint of it being like maybe not great because, like you said, like certain people put such a amazing amount of like layered, thoughtful, clever, interesting kind of wrinkles into what they do. Like you said about Tyler's work, like it's you can feel that very quickly.
Yeah.
And I've been curious to get your perspective on this, especially knowing that you've like had a pretty interesting last, I want to say like 12 months of travel. Like so I remember talking to you when I was talking to Tyler, you had just gotten back from Africa.
Yes.
I know that you went to Cape Cod, which is such an interesting place in and of itself for art.
Yes.
You went there this past summer, and then you also went to Art Basel, and right. So like, I would love to kind of, I don't know, just what are some of your takeaways from having, made those mental snapshots, especially in a place like Africa, which is just having lived in Johannesburg for 6 months myself back in 2003. I mean, certain places are just different, they're just totally different.
Yeah.
I felt that. Describe these travels that you had over the last.
So I went to Africa. I got taken by my friends. Actually, they like took me on safari, and it was actually the same elegant woman who told me to not sing.
Oh, this elegant woman, she continues to make an impact.
I call her my godmother. My mom didn't like assign her anything. I just did. I was like, you just be my godmother. I love you. Her son is like one of my best friends, and he's like my oldest friend. And
cool.
Yeah, they're super cool. They live in Texas. They took me to Africa, and we went on safari, and it was crazy. We went to Kenya and Tanzania, and I knew it was going to be a really mind opening trip, but I didn't even understand how mind opening. The day that we got to Nairobi, I immediately, we're driving to our hotel from the airport, And I immediately start seeing all these labels everywhere. Like, and I think I told you this when I popped in with Tyler, because it was really like the main theme of the whole trip for me. And it was just, I had no idea, but I started seeing all these Chinese labels everywhere. And I asked our drivers, I was like, what are all these Chinese, what's all this stuff? What's all this Chinese stuff, like this equipment? And come to finding out that Kenya specifically is super indebted to China. And China finances like a lot of their construction, and it's this really twisted, like corrupt government deal between the Kenyan government and China. And it's really scary because what's happening is, and specifically over COVID, Kenya got locked down for a while. I think it was 9 months. You couldn't leave or enter. No one could leave or enter Kenya for 9 months, except for China. So China had access to their ports. And I guess this is like what I heard from the people of Kenya and Tanzania, both told me this, is that there was just like a mass poaching situation during COVID because there was no safaris going on. So usually, the safaris are good because there's obviously negatives to it, but for the most part, like they do keep these nature preserves like going, and you're not killing animals, and the people are making sure the animals are okay and healthy and living. And
and there's witnesses in trucks with cameras driving around.
So the poaching is like not really going down like that, but I guess over COVID it just was like a massacre, and there was like shipping containers of animals like being ported out from Kenya, I guess. So I don't know, I learned all that, and it really like twisted my stomach. It's just so sad. And when these people that are taking you on safari and that have been doing it for 20 years or something, and they're telling you that like this is definitely not going to be here for much longer, like even the animals and things are going extinct, and obviously we don't know what's going to happen, but it's just what's been happening. Like it's just been happening, and it's really interesting. And so I think coming back to America, I don't want to be dependent on China because I've never been to China, but it seems almost ahead of us in a lot of ways. It seems like they're like overpopulated and there's diseases, and I don't really know what's going on over there, but it's just, it seems hard. It seems like a hard situation, like for the people. Like it just doesn't seem like the best situation. And I am really trying to be aware of, where when I have my clothes made, it's like I make them, or if I do have something put together, I make sure it's done in America and all the fabric is made in America. And that is a super challenging thing because it's super expensive to produce like that. And then you have to mark your prices up like crazy if you want to make a profit. So then, then you're already kind of going into this, like the people who are going to be interested in buying the clothes are going to be having to make like X amount of money if they want to buy your $1,000 sweater or whatever. But it really, that trip, it was so beautiful, and I saw like the most incredible things I've ever seen. Like it was so amazing. And it just was a little scary because I felt like I had a weird glimpse into, I don't know, the future. When we were in Masai Mara, the Maasai people live in the hills around the preserve. So Masai Mara is here, and then the Maasai people are up in the hill, like on the surrounding hills that surround it. And when it gets dark, you can now see a couple lights up in the hills. And so we were talking to the security guard one night, and we were just having drinks and like asking him about his life and whatever. And he told us that a few people that make enough money now have solar, so they have electricity. And this just happened. So there's like places that are starting to have lights. And he told us that him and his family just got a TV. And so like shit is about to change. Like these people are going to be influenced heavily. They're going to be watching TV. They now have access, which isn't like bad. Like they should have access to the world and to what everybody else is doing. But it's going to just change so much. These people are so pure. They're so authentic. They're so uninfluenced by anything outside of Africa. Like they are so unique to, that's why it's such a life-changing. I mean, obviously Africa is so big and there's so many different parts of Africa, but Kenya and Tanzania specifically, the people were pretty authentic to, I mean, they're different from anywhere else in the world. And
yeah, no, I mean, like I said, when I lived in Johannesburg, South Africa, this is in 2003. I think it's still probably the same way it was back then today, where South Africa in many respects is like this place where a lot of different African nations have people that just go there, whether it's for, business stuff or, trade route or travel or whatever. And as a result, South Africa does have this kind of very diverse background relative to the rest of the continent.
right.
And at the same time, it was clear, even going from Johannesburg to Durban, or you think about a cosmopolitan place like Cape Town, there still is this kind of sense that you get where it's like, okay, even if there's this like bouillabaisse of cultures and languages and histories that are happening right here, it felt still kind of insular to Africa itself versus like what you're saying now. And I think that this is probably, so evident in other places of the world, the global economy that we're in and the far-reaching aspects of whether it's technology through social media or technology through, like you said, solar or something, where it's going to irreparably change what our definitions are of whatever culture that we want to authentically experience. I mean, that's a really tricky one. It's maybe one of the trickiest things happening right now from a human standpoint. It's just like reconciling, like, yeah, like certain animals are going to go extinct if you build.
I mean, these people don't, like a lot of these people, especially like the Maasai people, like they don't have running water. Sure. Like when you start building all of these like infrastructures for electricity and water and treatment plants and like all this stuff, I don't know if, I just think that is just like you sacrifice the nature. And I don't know, part of me always thinks that the nature will win. Like I don't even think we have a chance. I think that nature is just gonna like come back and just eat us up because we're not stopping, and it'll just burn us out or freeze us or whatever, but so that we just chill out, because it's like, all right, like this is crazy, like it almost needs to reset or something. But it's interesting as you see these people, and they are so cool because they know how to live off the land. Like they are living humans, like they're human. Like I didn't even feel human there when I don't want to compare myself to these people, but I just felt so white and like so privileged and so disgusted with myself, honestly. Like it was really I have never seen poverty of that level. Like we went into the safari we went with, like supports this foundation called Amerishare, and they like basically have books and some clothes, and they bring kids in and give them an education that are in the slums of Africa. And so we went and visited Amerishare and went into the slums of Africa, and it was probably it felt like a nightmare, and I felt like a monster, because you get, taken in on this super expensive, like decked out Land Rover that has like cheetah print on it. And we're like 8 white people, and like all these people of the slums, there's like water going through the slums, and like carcasses of meat that people are eating, and like this water that's going through is just filled with trash, and it's like black sludge. And I didn't understand that things were that bad anywhere in the world. I have never seen anything like that in my life. And I felt, these people like spread apart for the Land Rover, and they're peaceful. They're not like nobody's attacking or mad, but they're looking up at you like you're, I don't know, like they're cross too, because they're happy you're there, because they know that just historically, like the white man brings money. But they also understand like there's something not right, because why are these people in this cheetah print car and everybody else is like down on the ground? Like it felt so crazy. And I still am processing a lot of it. And because it's so overwhelming, I don't know how you can even start doing anything about any of that. It's so complex and corrupt, and it's so wild. But there are cool, we also we met this company down there too, called Huru, and they make like reusable pads for girls, and so that you're not just like using tampons and trash, and you can wash them and like use them again, and they're just like cotton pads and underwear for girls and boys. And so it's like kind of just trying to help be more sanitary, like with your body. And it's a cool little company, and it really makes a difference for a lot of people. Just getting like a fresh pack of like underwear and stuff is like awesome. And so we met, that's cool. And there are people that are working towards making a difference, but you're going against this like giant like black hole that is like the government of like the world's, like I don't even know which government it is. It seems like all of them are I don't really know, and I grew up like a child of the government. Like I grew up in the foster system, and it's had a serious impact on my life. And one of my good friends sent me this article. I think the New York Times wrote it. It was either the New York Post or New York Times. And it was about how in Germany, they just came out with the foster system is being held. They're admitting that they were using the foster system to track pedophiles and sex trafficking. So they like purposely weren't screening people so that they could like find pedophiles with children. And like for sure that stuff's going on here. And I don't know, it's like that stuff, there are these like secrets to the world and the systems that be right now that I would like to explore and in my life and understand more about what's going on. Because I think, and I just think moving within my own world that I'm, over here, not in the government, like just as a citizen, I'm really trying to be conscious of all of that and like not do that. Like I'm not going to get my stuff made in China, even though it costs 30 cents to make a sweater, and that would be awesome. I'm not gonna, there's just this list of stuff that I have been making for myself that feels like sustainable and what sustainability is. And, I think that the more we all can become conscious of that, it like the better, because I don't know, shit's getting kind of grim.
Yeah, no,
It's so grim.
let's face it, it is, right? Like there's a lot of the scope and the complexity of everything that we are suddenly having to juggle as a broader society today is just like it's just
Your face like says it all. Like
yeah, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's difficult. I mean, so like from a standpoint of just like, you're thinking about things like the law, and here in the United States, there's so many things about our legal system that we've brought over from the common law practices of England, dating back to like whatever, the 1300s or something like that. And then you think about us having to kind of shoehorn some kind of position legally around something like cryptocurrencies, and you're like, wait a minute, we're not really equipped now suddenly to like know how to organize something like that because it's so disruptive, it's so different.
Well, and crypto, in my own, from what I know, not to interrupt you, I just have to say it because it's very real. And I think it's like cool. And like, there's these people that are really like, it's like cool to have crypto, but crypto is also, you can't track the funds, right? And that's the main way that people pay for, sex trafficking.
Yeah, there's obviously been a naughty side to all of that back in the day, and hopefully there's some kind of, that's to a degree, that's sort of
some
where
kind of like free market. It's like a free market.
Yeah, that to a degree, that's kind of where I was going. I'm just like, okay, suddenly now there's this form of currency that can be used, exchanged, whatever, as an asset class globally beyond the reach of like a specific government. So therefore, how are you going to wrap that into some kind of like, legal point of view? I don't know how you do that. It requires almost like a whole new measure. And to follow on what you were saying about sustainability, sustainability today is a whole bunch of different things. It's a best efforts policy that a company makes about sourcing and supply chain, and are we making a product that the world needs? Are we making a product that's fairly priced? Are we making a product where we're going to survive, or where the people that made it can make a buck? Like,
yeah, it's just so like, I don't understand what, as a 27-year-old, I'm like, I don't feel the way that I live right now, right? I don't grow any of my own food. I don't really know how to grow any of my own food. I'm sure I could figure it out, but like, I've never really grown any of my own food. I go and get my water from the store. I use water to wash myself and go to the bathroom. And like, if I didn't have those things, it would be like, and for me, it's like, I'm a pretty outdoorsy, like I can rough it and like be okay to not shower for a couple days and like be in my own smell and whatever.
right.
But if you were to take just those things, just water, electricity, and like food, America would flip out. Like, people would lose their mind. And the scariest part to me is I'm like, damn, like I would like to learn how to like I would like to learn how to live a little bit more off grid, because it makes me feel safer. Like, if I could know how to do that, I would maybe feel a little safer. And going back to like defining myself, or like when we were talking about that, just the other day, this whole weird connected dots thing happened for me. I was working on my website, trying to basically like write up a little nice sentence of like who I am. I'm like, all right, it's like, Leila is an American visual artist, like who
Yeah.
is like primarily known for, I was like, all right, trying to look up these different artists that I really admire and see what they're like defined as. And I recently went to this show when I was in LA, which is where I went after Africa. So I went to LA, I went to this show of this woman named Pipilati Wrist. And she's like this cool visual artist. I think she's like in her I think she's 70 right now. Let me look. But she had this incredible show. Oh no, she's not. Excuse me. She's 59. She's the Swiss artist. And when I went to the show, it was so cool. It was projection. It was a whole environment, right? She created the whole environment. There was obviously little things that were little paintings and this giant like underwear chandelier and lots of sound, video, a lot of stuff that I really, really, really resonated with. And so I started really looking into her because she's like this newer artist that I had just newer for me. And I found the word intermedia. And I had never heard of that word before. So I started looking up like what intermedia was. And what it comes up as is it was a term used in the mid 1960s by an artist named Dick Higgins, who described various interdisciplinary art activities that occurred between genres. And I was like, oh my God, that's what I've been doing. That's like that's me. Like I'm intermedia. Like I figured it out. So then I looked up Dick Higgins, and Dick Higgins was like this underground artist that, he's like in all these, he has all these, he's very credible, but he was super low key. And he was a part of this whole movement called Fluxus. And Fluxus was basically between Dick Higgins and what was the other guy's name? George, what's his last name? George Fluxus. Let me see if I can find his last name. George, I just don't want to say it right. George McKenas. Yeah, George McKenas, I guess. And Dick Higgins. They kind of were these two dudes that were kind of like underground. And in the 70s and 60s, they had this whole like little community of artists and some really big names in art too right now. And they were doing all this really cool stuff. And so I started getting more into Fluxus, and Tyler and I watched this documentary just the other night because I was like, oh my God, have you heard of Fluxus? And he was like, no. And then he actually has a sticker on his water bottle that is a Fluxus sticker.
Tyler does.
He had no idea. And it's from our friends have this like collective called Dream Street, and they made a Fluxus sticker. And wow. So it like connected us back to the community that we're feeling most drawn to right now. Also, it's like Tyler's Galleries in New York, Bracket Creek Exhibitions, and they had like a Fluxus sticker. And so I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. Like, are we Fluxus? Like, what is Fluxus? So we watched this documentary, and George McKenas, it's all like basically about George McKenas. And he says that art to him was in homemaking. Like art to him was homemaking. And so coming from, I'm like a kid who kind of grew up in a broken home situation. I grew up in a lot of different homes, a lot of different people. And so like making my home right now with Tyler truly is like I'm really working on it. I'm like, right, this is our home. Like we live here. This is where we eat and sleep. And like, there's my chair, there's your chair. Like
that's so cool.
I'm making but I'm starting to incorporate all these like current issues.
Yeah.
And I'm like, dude, we should live off grid. Like we should learn how to live off grid, because it could be super, it could just save our lives actually, really, but like maybe it could inspire that, because I don't know what the answer is. Like continuing to use all this electricity and gas and oil and all the byproducts of all that stuff, we're vegetarian right now. That's like about as hard as we go about, and which we,
that's something though.
Yeah, I feel like not consuming the meat, and like I think we're gonna work towards being vegan, but we still do like a little cheese. And
it's crazy too. To jump in on that very subject, one of the things that I have seen a bit more of, not like shocking or anything like that, but is just people talking about insects being a form of protein going forward.
Mm-hmm.
Relative to like beef or chicken or whatever, because obviously those industries are huge. They feed a lot of people, but they're, maybe either like not the most humane, not the most sanitary, not the best for the
But it's planet. Totally cool to the grasshoppers definitely don't have souls. Like,
it's crazy.
I'm like, is it different? Like, is it different? I don't know.
It's crazy when people start throwing this stuff out there, but it goes to show you, like you said, about needing to kind of think about living off the grid or whatever. Not to suggest that there's going to be a zombie apocalypse in 2022. I hope there's not.
I'm like not totally ready for it, but like emotionally I'm ready for it.
You're ready for the zombie apocalypse already?
Emotionally I'm ready. Physically, like I don't have rope. Like I don't have any rope. I have a knife. Rope. We don't have guns. Like I don't really want to get a gun. I like guns.
I feel like you need some flares too.
Yeah. Just like need some like flint. Like we don't have any flint.
Yeah.
We definitely aren't like physically prepared, but emotionally I am prepared.
Okay, so having said all this, a lot of images running through my mind. Transport me now to your experience in Cape Cod, because
so
that seemed magical.
So Cape Cod is where my grandpa lives, and my grandpa has lived in Cape Cod. He's been going there since he was a kid. Like he would go there with his parents when he was a kid, and then it's kind of like a safe space for him. And he has been caretaking these really cool, rough little old cottages, like classic Cape Cod beach cottages, for 35 years, I think now, and just kind of trading, to live there. And he has one of the cottages, and then he like does all the caretaking. So he's in kind of an interesting situation. He has this amazing girlfriend that he's been with for a little while, who's an artist from Oregon. So now they're splitting their time, and he's there for the winter. And he still wants to work and everything, but he is getting older, and you can't be like redoing a roof all the time when you're getting up to his age. So I know that is all kind of shifting. And his cottage that he has there, I've been there 4 times in my life now. That was the 4th time I've ever been. And he is basically at a point where he's letting me go through all his work. And so his cottage, it's the coolest little cottage. I mean, it is like there's spiders everywhere, like crazy Cape Cod spiders. And it's, it's literally like just this time capsule of incredible like photos and textiles and other art from other artists that have sent him stuff. Or his dad also was an industrial designer, and so there's like his work that I have seen. Last summer I went with Tyler too. We went up there, and so I did see a little bit of, I haven't really seen it. Like I really went through the stuff, and there's a lot of stuff. Like I barely scratched the surface of what I took and what I'm working on curating for this show in New York with him. But yeah, it was magical. There's definitely, my grandpa's super magical. That work was I'm super excited to like figure out how to kind of revamp it a little bit. And it's also the stuff my grandpa is more known for is, he actually was awarded a historical award, but the show got canceled because it was right when COVID started. And he in Breckenridge, because he shot Breckenridge like in the 70s.
Wow.
And so it was like really before it was developed, and there was a little commune of people that basically moved to Breck, and they were all super hippie. And there was like a weird little movement that happened there in the 70s. And so my grandpa really captured all of that. And like his photos are all over the town. They're all in the courthouse, they're in doctor's offices. Yeah, there's like photos of my mom, like as a kid, all over Breckenridge. And so that's really like a lot of people, and I've always known his work like that too, but the work that I was going after was on a much different level. And some of the stuff that I ended up getting into, there was stuff, you know, when I found this big old court typewritten like court file, right? And I start reading through it, and it's when he was fighting for custody for my mom when she was a kid, when she was 7.
Wow.
And so it's between him and my grandma, and I'm like reading through this stuff, and it's so crazy because it got into, I have only recently discovered that the women, my grandma and my mom, my grandma, they haven't like publicly been diagnosed with personality disorders, but my grandma's half sister is a psychiatrist, and she's the only one who's gotten close enough to her, because my grandma would never really go to a doctor. And she always told my mom that she had histrionic personality disorder. And so I've been exploring that within my grandma and my mom and also myself, and like trying to understand what that is. I also don't really believe fully in psychiatry because I'm like, we don't know what's going on. Like, you're just defining something you don't understand. I believe in like magic and curses and like past lives, and like I don't know, like so the whole like personality disorder thing to me is a little like I don't take it too seriously, but I do think that it's interesting.
Yeah.
And I want to explore that more, I guess, within my family and like myself, and also just society in general, because I think there's whatever, there's so many different personality disorders, and then there's also like borderline personality disorder.
Right.
And I'm like, all right, like if we were really to diagnose everyone in the world, like 99% of people would have some kind of personality disorder.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's like they say it's a matter of degree. You know, that we all share in everyone else's kind of stuff, I think. But I'm with you. I think that to explore the human psyche, whether it's on a neurotransmitter level or soft sciences, Freudian, whatever, to me, it's a very, very deep algorithm, black hole of, you know, potential questions that we just don't know about, like you said.
yeah.
I think being half Irish, I think that makes me very much a mystic.
I'm Irish too.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm half Irish, half Italian, and
me too, though. Me
no
too.
Way.
Yeah. Well, I guess my dad is Italian. I didn't really know. I have other stuff in there too. I don't know if it's like half and half, but
yeah. Well, you know,
my 23andMe says so.
Yeah, depending on the company and the weather, I'm half Irish, half Italian, and both of those, I think cultures just very much have been known to subscribe to superstitions and all kinds of stuff that would,
right,
I think nowadays probably be considered magic or whatever. You know, my dad would always have this funny expression. You know, if ever I like was almost injured or whatever, or something could have happened but it didn't, you know, my dad would always say, you know what, Johnny, God protects the Irish.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I love that so much.
Yeah. So I'd always like believe him. I'm like, fuck, okay, great. Like, you know, got
That's
that going.
Amazing. I needed to hear that right now. I like really needed to hear that. That's amazing. That's
okay. So now transport us to Art Basel. I've been to Miami a bunch of times, never during the show. Almost went 1 year. Miami to me is already a very theatrical place.
Totally.
It feels very much like Vegas on the beach, but that's just me.
Yeah, I had been there twice before, but I was there when I was like 17. And when I was for my 18th birthday, I was actually there, but I was there on some modeling stuff. Like I went to go meet agencies, and I didn't really experience it. Like I was there for like 2 days,
Right.
And this time I was old, I'm older. I went out, I like had friends with me. So I was there wasn't even Uber, I think, when I was there. So it was like all different. There's Uber now. Like you could just Uber everywhere. But when I was there, it was like there was no Uber. It was taxi. It was so expensive and whatever. Yeah, so that was my first time ever going to Art Basel as well. And I actually really wasn't even planning on going into Art Basel. I was more going for the social aspect of it because I had friends that were going, and they called me and were like, you could stay with us. And, I was like, okay, cool. Like, I'm going to go. Tyler has been before in years past, like a couple times. And he was going to go with me, but it was so last minute. He just stayed, and I went. And I actually was in Art Basel. I didn't even know. There was a photo of me that it was my friend's work, but it was a photo of me. And this is a photographer that is a really good friend of mine, or just has become kind of like a cool mentor. I really appreciate him and his work. And
who's this?
Torbjörn Rodland. He's amazing, and he's super like hot he's always been hot in the scene, but he's really, it's interesting because he's somebody that gives me creative freedom when I want to shoot with him. If I have an idea, he will allow that direction to like take place, and he'll support it and shoot it. And it's been really cool to see even just like an idea, and not even just my idea, it's also he's been taking a photo of me. So then it's like there's now a photo of me in galleries. Like in 2020, he put these concepts into galleries, and it was kind of a big deal for me because it just told me that my ideas could go into a gallery. Like it almost opened a door for me just mentally, that it was like, no, your ideas are good enough that they can live in a gallery like this at this level, and it kind of gave me a new sense of confidence. And I've shot with him since I was 18. So he's been somebody that I've always kind of stayed in touch with, and I really look up to him in many ways and think he's super incredible and wise and unique. And he's just, a lot of people do, I don't know, they try to do what he's doing, but I feel like the photos that he has taken of me, it's how I see myself. It's not how like someone else sees me. Like he really sees, or he like captures me to where I even see it. And I'm like, oh, I recognize myself in that photo. But I also, there's like something going on that I wasn't even aware of, to where it's like, oh, wow, that's so accurate to like who I am as a person, like as my character. Will be like something little that's in there that's like, oh, yeah, that's so me. Like you really, even before, I started pitching ideas to him and being like, let's do this. That was already happening for me with his work. Like he put this photo of me in, there's actually the first photo he ever took of me. I'm like, I wonder if I'm even allowed to talk about it. Yeah, I'm like, I don't even know if I should talk about it, but I didn't understand it. It was when I was 18, and he told me, he took this photo and he sent it to me on Facebook, and he was like, don't show anyone this photo. And I thought it was the coolest photo ever. I was so happy. He was like the biggest photographer I'd ever shot with. I didn't understand. I was like, what the fuck? Like, of course I'm going to show everyone. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I must post this on Facebook and like show my friends and family. Like, what are you talking about? And I didn't understand like the distribution of work or like time. And I didn't understand what he was doing with that. And he still has not put this photo out. Like, I don't know when it's ever going to be out, but it's it's the first photo he ever took of me. And this photo, I guess he did like a series, with with this object and like other people, and I can't like, I don't want to give away the object, I guess, because I don't know if I should blow it, but everybody interacted with this object differently. And like the way that I interacted with the object, I was like, whoa, that is how I fucking interact. Like that is what I do. Like that's what I do with everything, you know? Or that's what I really, maybe I don't even try to do it. I think it just happens. But yeah, he's super cool. And so I saw someone and they were like, oh, I saw you over there. And I was like, what? And there was a photo, there was a photo of me that he had taken a few years ago that was up. And I was like, oh shit, sick.
That's so great.
Yeah, so that was cool. It was like my first Basel, and I was like there was a weird photo of me in Basel. So, and that whole thing is also just like organically kind of been happening. It makes me really excited because when I started modeling, I didn't really even understand, you know, I kind of thought the modeling thing was, I do appreciate the fashion world on an art level because to me, it's almost more authentic than the art world right now. Like the art that's happening in design is more authentic than like most paintings that I see right now. And like within clothing and all of it. But I never understood that like photographs could be considered emerging contemporary art. And so everything's coming full circle because I'm at this point where like I feel like I'm in a position to like help my family and like help my grandpa and like do something really cool that I really care about. You know, I really love his work so much and appreciate his work so much. I think it's so cool. And it's a weird timing because I think right now it's like, I think people will understand his work. If you were to put it out 5 years ago, I don't think it would have been as cool. But next year, like when we do this show, I think it's gonna be like really good timing. I think it's gonna be so cool for him. But it's interesting that I even have photography is one of the hardest mediums to sell in the art as a medium in art. It's one of the hardest to sell is what I've heard from.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense though.
It's like one of the hardest. That's why everybody resorts to commercial work. Everybody ends up doing commercial shit because that's where the money is. You can't really make money as like a fine art photographer. It's really hard. So I feel like I have this cool, super genuine relationship mentor that has just organically formed over whatever the last 7 years. And now I'm understanding more and more how passionate I am about photography. Not saying that I want to be a photographer or anything. I think like visually, I like a lot of different things and I want to continue to make a lot of different things. But just as far as understanding like that, I start realizing that majority of my friends are like photographers, like that my best friends are like some of my best friends are all photographers. And I just have this like super subconscious like love and appreciation for photography as an art form. So I think I'm like discovering that right now. And that was kind of Cape Cod as a whole for me. And then like going to Basel was almost this weird like validation that it was like, whoa, weird. Like that's weird that there's, you know, I consciously chose to not model when I like really consciously chose. And I think universally too, it was kind of just like always steering me away from that world. But, you know, because I did want to pursue art and I don't like the model turned artist vibe. Like, that's like a no for me, even though it shouldn't be, but it just isn't like what I just see how people absorb it. And it's just like, they don't respect that. Like, I don't know. I even saw a meme today that was some weird shit that I didn't even understand. It was like someone riding a speed bike, like where, you know, they're turning so hard that their knee is on the ground, you know, they're like scraping. And then he had like a Scream mask on. And the meme said, oh, you make art and you're hot. And I was just, and it was like, get over yourself or something.
Right.
And I was just like, what? Like, what is that? Like, I don't know what that is, but whatever that is, I really have tried to steer away from it. I don't know if I successfully did steer away from it, because a lot of people are like, oh, you modeled, right? And I'm like, fuck, like, shit. Like, oh no. But I feel like a lot of the modeling that I did was very self-directed. I was really exploring myself like through the lens of someone else. Like it was interesting for me to find a photographer that I really liked their work. I was like, oh, that's cool photography. And then like position myself in front of their lens, how I wanted to be, whether it was with clothes, without clothes, wearing whatever I want, looking however I want to look, makeup, no makeup, hair on my body, no hair. Like it was all up to me. And I think that is, I really tried to stay out of I don't know, I tried to like stay genuine to myself and not let whatever that whole like industry like tell me who I am,
Yeah. Gotta avoid those labels, just like the overuse of the word like.
I am nothing.
Yeah, I mean, no, but I think that's a really refreshing, it's like a super refreshing attitude, or whatever you want to say, to have, because labels are so awkward. Like I remember, with my last company too, it's like I hated putting a label on anything, like what I was doing, what the company was all about, like, because I'm like, why would that make sense to say? Like, it just puts a ceiling on everything and allows everybody to be like, well, that's what you are, so therefore you should do more of X, Y, or Z. Yeah, no, labels are like bad baggage almost. You gotta just
like, too. And I think that there's also this like weird, I don't know what that is, with like everybody wants to know how everybody made their money.
Yeah.
Or like, and I'm kind of like, that's kind of private.
No shit.
Kind of like a private matter. Like, you don't need to worry about how that person made their money. Like, I mean, I guess I do wonder sometimes how people made their money, but only because I grew up super poor and I'm like, how'd you do that? Like, it's not like,
understand.
It's not coming from like, what do you do? Like, it's really coming from like, fuck, like, can I do I like, could I do that? Like, could I do this? Could I, what do I like doing? Where's the middle of that? Like, if that person's making money doing this, I like doing this, like maybe I can come here and like make money doing that, So it's not, I don't know. I'm not like, I'm trying to be a little more aware of the money, because I do, obviously, like it does matter. But I just think that our whole, like the consumerism that's going on right now is so, I love hearing Kanye speak about it.
Like, tell me more. I want to hear why.
I don't know. I mean, I've never been a super big Kanye fan, but I kind of like I kind of like Kanye now a little bit more than I did. I mean, he's always been a little neutral to me, but I think he has a lot of good points when it comes to like consumerism and why people do things and how just we operate like as a society and what we're focused on instead of what we should be focused on, and like what really matters, and how like that whole world of like in marketing is pretty subliminal. Like they're gonna show you shit to make you think what they want you to think. That it's not really left up to you. Like it's a guided train of thought.
It's a guided tour.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, like, I don't know. It's definitely, Tyler and I talk about buying land a lot, and it seems kind of like, I don't know, it's like getting harder to obtain because it's getting more expensive, and yeah, I don't know. And it seems like that's a reoccurring thing too. Like growing up, I always remember my mom being like, oh, if I would have bought a house in the 80s, like we would have had a house, but I can't now. And it's just like, is it always going to be like that? Is it just like forever rising? Like, I don't know, even moving my grandma here, we got her house right before the pandemic and it's doubled in price. Her house is doubled in price.
Wow. Yeah.
I feel very
I mean, land is special, as they say early and often in law school. And I think like what you're saying about the Rust Belt or all of the miles and miles and miles in between the East and the West Coast in this country, you know, there's bound to be, you know, some new discoveries that are made there and new things that happen there because
in the Rust Belt,
potentially in the Rust Belt. My mom is.
Where? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, my mom's from Cleveland, Ohio.
Oh, she is. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, she.
Everyone is from Ohio.
Everyone's from Ohio at the end of the day. Yeah, my mom's from Cleveland, you know, and like you were saying about Breckenridge. I mean, I feel like that same dynamic you could basically call out almost any coastal city in California now.
Yeah.
And just be like, okay, like really who's going to be there over the next 10 years? And I think that we all cringe when we think about that, whatever, not to hate on people with Sprinter vans, you know, because the world needs some Sprinter vans, but
right.
You know what I'm saying?
No, it's definitely, yeah, we talk about buying land and I'm like, all right, trying to look 10 years down the road. I'm like, Colorado is going to be dry. Montana, Tyler likes Montana. I'm like, it's going to be dry. There's fires. Do you know how much fire insurance is? Like it then comes back to the word of like sustainability. And it's like, dude, how are we going to sustain a piece of land with a house on it? You know, like with water, with electricity, with like all these things that we've become so dependent on. And it's like, I just end up back in Ohio. Like, I'm just like, Ohio might be like where it's at. Like, it might be the place that doesn't go and turn into a desert. And,
it's a scary.
I mean, the hurricanes the tornadoes are a little sketchy. That's some, what's that Dorothy? That's some freaking Wizard of Oz shit right there.
That's some crazy shit. And
tornadoes are scary.
Kentucky is not far away from where you are. So
right. No,
no.
It's not. It's like 2 hours.
I'm with you. I'm with you. As a native of Southern California, I definitely look at the dynamic that's there, the dynamic that's in many places, whatever, and all along the East Coast. And suddenly you start looking at places like whatever, Dayton or Memphis, Tennessee or something, and you're like, hey man, like it's probably a lot of cool shit that's going on places like that.
Yeah, I know it's hard. I mean, obviously it's like so hard to know what's gonna happen, but it's all pretty interesting. It's all very interesting.
So quickly, last topic here. Are there any recommendations that you can make on any level? I guess the first recommendation you already threw out there was the documentary about Fluxus. What was it called?
Oh, hell yeah. Let me look it up because it was pretty good. There's a few of them, I think, but this was just the first one. George Fluxus film. It's called The Story of George McKenas and Fluxus. That's it.
Too easy.
It's on YouTube. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Fluxus is cool. I think, you know, people say Fluxus died when George died, but I think long live Fluxus.
I can't wait to check this out.
Yeah, it's super cool. I really, I mean, it's so cool because for me, the next trip I'm taking is I'll be in LA for all of January. Cool. And I'm going to go work with one of my really, really good friends. He's a photographer and we're going to do like a few different projects together. And he's also going to be helping me document and shoot some of my like older work that I've never shown anyone. And a lot of my older work, I've never, I don't know, it feels like it, the Fluxus situation, I was like, wow, this is so, my work felt like it belonged, like it could be defined in a way, which not that I want it to be defined in any way or compared to something else, but it feels nice to, it felt like I found, I don't know, it was such an interesting like coming home feeling. Like I was like, whoa, I have flux, like there's a thing called flux boxes. And they're super cool. Like that's probably a flux box, is like they would have George McKenna's would make these flux boxes, and it would basically be like a bunch of different artists like work in a box. So he would send it out to people and you'd get like a flux box and it'd have like all these different pieces of work from all this community of artists.
Wow.
And I'm like, I have flux boxes that I've made from like my life and people in my life. And like, not that I would ever necessarily send it out, but it's just interesting how he's like organizing his passions. And I really resonated with all of it. I was like, whoa, this is so cool. And what they found was important, and the way that George and Dick Higgins too thought about art and thought about, I don't know, even just like existing as an artist and like succeeding in the world as an artist. I don't know, they had such a cool, like fun, raw way of doing it. And it wasn't just like doing what everybody else does, because, you know, I think for me, it's like very tempting to do what everyone else is doing sometimes, because I'm like, oh, be like, yeah, I could make like a bunch of abstract paintings and like splash paint around, and like I'm a female like young artist, and I could go fucking manoozle my way over there and like schnoob over here and like do that, but it wouldn't really be like genuine to who I am. And I'm fine, you know, there's so much insecurity when you're like genuine to yourself, I think sometimes, because you're different, you're different, you're like, I notice I feel really out of the loop a lot of the times. Like I feel out of it, even just in social settings. Sometimes I'm like, I feel so like single, and maybe that's just my own insecurity going on, but that whole understanding that whole movement in more of like a current time was super cool to me. And then, yeah, I don't know, I guess your question was if that was just a piece of advice. Watch the Flux documentary.
I think that that's a great recommendation, because it's something that, like you said, that you identified, you know, a real connection with, not to label or put, you know, what you do in a bucket or anything like that. It's just something that you saw a sense of like connection or belongingness to, like you said about your friend's photography, where you were like, whatever made this particular photo, you like saw yourself in that photo as you see yourself. And I think that that's a pretty, like, once you can start sort of like, I think, picking up on these awesome little breadcrumbs, I mean, that's like kind of like the reward of being
totally. No, I'm like looking for it. I'm like hunting for myself almost. Like I feel like I was born, like I do know who I am. I don't think I've changed since I was younger. I've always been like a shithead. I've always just been like a little feisty, like fearless, like little child, like just running around, saying too much, loud, ignorant. Like it's just been, and like not in a bad way. It's just like I didn't know any better. I was like feral. Like I was freaking lost in the foster system for years in my developmental years, like as got taken away when I was 3 years old. Like, you know, you kind of just, I was feral. Like I was literally a feral child. So I feel like I am just trying to find myself, like my real self. And I feel that I have been able to do that through art and through music and through clothes and design and all of these like creative endeavors, I am finding myself, and through like the community that is forming, you know, in time with all of these relationships that are occurring. And I'm so thankful for it. And that's like what I want Alesco to be, that for other people eventually. And I don't know how I'm going to do that yet, but it is like forming. Yeah. And I also have beneficial sounds too, which is like super under the radar and still like in super, it's already been like all these things and like changed. And one of my best friends from high school, she is a lawyer, and she just got a serious job. She got like a big girl office at a very, very serious law firm in LA. And they work with, you know, like when James Turrell does the lighting for like Kanye West, like they do that kind of stuff, but they also do they're a music law firm. So she is going to help me build it out properly because she knows like legally what the deal is, and I like conceptually and can kind of help, I don't know, conceptually form it, and she can like legally form it. So
it makes a lot of sense. And look, you've mentioned beneficial sounds to me in the past. To be honest with you, it sounded like such an amazing effort.
I just don't know what it is yet, as far as like there's two routes I feel that I could go, and I don't want to pick one. I mean, there's more than two, but there's one side of me that would like to dive into like studies on frequency and, you know, these like harmonic tones, and like really like explore it in an artistic environment, and maybe get involved with like galleries. And you know, they're building an observatory downtown LA that's supposed to be like space, like you walk in and it's just supposed to be space. So it's like, oh, you could do all the sound installation for that place, you know, or you could connect with like pop artists and connect to the general public and have like live performances and kind of create this thing. But that's like there's like two different ways, and I'm like, oh, could I do both? Which one do we start with? With this one's kind of like crazy because there's all these legal things that start happening when you want to have like performances. Do we just do online, you know, streaming of live performances, which was what I was doing when I was like 19, 20, and producing those, and like companies were interested in that concept. But I just am not rushing that one. I just think, you know, I got the name and trademarked it. I got the domain when I was 17 and just trademarked, and I'm like, this is mine, like this is my baby. And I really believe in sound too. Like I think sound is super trippy and very real and like undeniable. And I think we don't understand anything about it at all. Like, I think there's like weird subliminal things that go on within like the music industry. So I don't know, all of that is coming, but you know, highest good of all concern.
Well, look, I mean, beneficial sounds and the dissection of at least your understanding of sounds, to me, sounds like a very excellent next podcast.
Totally.
Okay. I think, you know, like you said, I mean, you haven't done a lot of pods in the past.
First ever.
First ever. Well, technically the first was with Tyler.
Right. You're right.
And yeah, there was a follow-on effort here. I'll just say it right now. I think it'd be a lot of fun to hear more about what you're doing. Beneficial sounds, you know, even to this point on the map, like how you even got it to this place. I think that sounds like an excellent other thing to talk about at some point in time.
Okay. Well, I'm so happy. This was awesome. I mean, that was like a nice 2 hours, pretty quick, kind of crazy.
It's kind of wild.
It's so crazy, but I love talking to you, and it's cool to do it while we're recording. It like kind of puts a whole other energy on it a little bit. Not really, but kind of like, it's like, oh, we're going to talk. Let's talk about some real shit right now. Like, let's tell them. Like,
I agree.
Anyone who's listening.
Well, goes without saying, thank you so much for taking the time.
You're welcome. And thanks for thinking of me. I really appreciate it.
Of course.
Okay. Well, I'll talk to you soon.
Sounds great.
Bye, John.